Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to Brazil for the first time in quite a little while actually, and we're going to kick off my mini series of Brazilian beers that you're going to see reviewed over the next little while. So as you might have seen very recently, I made an order with Beer Dome down in the Netherlands. They got a bunch of Brazilian beers in for whatever reason, I'm not quite sure, and I just kind of thought, well, it's not often you get the opportunity in Europe to get a bunch of different Brazilian beers. So I bought beers from 11 different breweries, and you're going to see these reviewed on the channel over the next little while. So very much looking forward to this actually. We have had 5 reviews on the channel so far that involve Brazilian breweries, 3 dedicated reviews and 2 collaboration reviews. So of the dedicated reviews, we've had a beer from Cervejaria Belém, which was a really interesting kind of fruit beer. After that we had 2 beers from my friend Fabrizio, who originally is from Rio but now lives in Iceland. That was the wee heavy Scotch ale from Cervejaria Bodebrown, and also a kind of sour porter type beer, if I remember rightly, from Cervejaria Tupinicum. Then beyond that we've had 2 collaboration brews from involving Brazilian breweries. So that was the 3 Bean Stout, which was with Lervik up in Stavanger in Norway. They did that in collaboration with 3 Ways, or 3 Ways beer I think they were called. And then we've had more recently the Monkey Business IPA from Spike Brewery in Gothenburg here in Sweden, and that was a collaboration with UX Brew and with the Three Monkeys Brewery actually as well, and that was very, very nice. Spike of course do have a Brazilian brewer, Bernardo Hava, and it'd be nice to get him on the channel at some point in the future. But yeah, those are the 5 videos so far that have featured Brazilian beers, so this is going to be my 6th review involving a Brazilian brewery and my 4th dedicated review actually. So yeah, this will be quite cool, and I have to say I am very much looking forward to this Brazilian mini-series over the next little while. So I seriously hope that you guys enjoy it, and you can check out the Brazilian beer list, the playlist that we have now on the channel as well. So yeah, this is going to be very cool. So yeah, let's get on with this actual review itself then. So for this one, we are going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel before. We're going to go to Sao Paulo, and we're having a look at my second beer involving UX Brew, who are part of the startup brewery parent company, I guess you could say. So this particular beer is called the Bite and Blow. It comes in at 5.2% ABV, and this one is another New England hazy style IPA. This one's got a very interesting hop profile to it, but we will talk about this a little bit later on in the review actually. But yeah, very, very much looking forward to this, and hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. Cool to feature UX Brew once again on the channel, of course, because like I say, the Monkey Business beer that they did with Spike and 3 Monkeys Brewing was very, very nice actually. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one then, a 5.2% New England IPA. So as I always do with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from UX Brew before, and fingers crossed we can add a little bit more to that in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there now for the Brazilian beers that are being reviewed for you, and that will be added to over the next little while, and fingers crossed we can continue to add to that fairly regularly. Hopefully this is the start of Brazilian beers starting to make their way over here to Europe now, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then, to tell you a little bit about UX Brew then. On to my brewery notes. So as I've told you before, UX Brew are one of the brands of beer produced by Startup Brewing, along with Cerveja Unicorn, Cerveja Avos, and then Juan Caloto. You will see a Juan Caloto beer reviewed at some point in the fairly near future actually. But this brewery, Startup Brewery, is based in the Itupeva district in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and the company was founded by Andre Franken and Andre Krunat back in 2016. So the two worked in the tech sector together, and they met as colleagues back in 2012, and they found that they had a common interest in beer, and then they decided to start producing beer together and homebrew as a hobby, which was pretty cool actually. It's quite a common story, this one, that you find out some of your colleagues are interested in beer and you start brewing together. But they started to produce beer as a gypsy brewery in the early days, and then they constructed their own brewery in Itupeva, which opened in June of 2018. This brewery has the capacity to brew around 120,000 litres of beer per month, and they've gradually been working up to that level over the last couple of years, and they've been distributing their beers a bit more widely throughout Brazil from what I understand. But as of December 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 35 different beers under the UX Brew brand, and they've also got various different beers under Unicorn, Avos and Juan Caloto, like I said. So yeah, probably in total these guys have produced somewhere in the region of 75 different kinds of beer. If I remember rightly. I did have a little quick look to see how many beers they produced under all the different brands, so I think it was about 75 in total that they had from these different things. But basically each of the different brands produced different kinds of beer basically. So the Juan Caloto, that seems to be the big kind of fruity and sort of sour type beers actually. I think the one that I have from Juan Caloto is some kind of Berliner Weisse, if I remember rightly. So yeah, that one will be interesting to review over at some point in the future. But yeah, all of these different brands that they have at Startup Brewing have different different types of beer basically. So yeah, you can check those out, and hopefully we can review something from each of those brands over the next little while. But in the meantime, you're going to have to make do with UX Brew and Juan Caloto. I've always wanted to go to Brazil though, so who knows, maybe we can get to Sao Paulo at some point and try a few different beers and things down there. But yeah, this should be pretty cool to try this one. But that's all I can really tell you about UX Brew for the moment and Startup Brewing. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. I have to say I'm very, very curious about this. So yeah, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork before we open up the can. So this one is a 473 milliliter bottle. I think I paid like €7 for this one, if I remember rightly. So yeah, it is a wee bit pricey compared to the European equivalents, I guess we could say. But then again, remember it is from Brazil, so it's going to need to be transported a hell of a long way. And Brazil and South America, there is no trade deal between these countries and the South American Confederation and the EU, so you will pay tariffs on these, hence the reason they're a little bit more expensive. Fabrizio tells me that craft beer in Brazil is actually quite expensive anyway, so that's another thing we need to think about. But yeah, lovely artwork on this one. As you can see, there is the UX Brew symbol there. Bite and Blow, 5.2% New England IPA. On the side here you can see two interesting symbols. So there is Startup Brewing, and there of course you can see the Brazilian Independent Brewers Association symbol as well. But yeah, 5.2% New England IPA, this one, hopped with Simcoe, Ela and TNT. So Simcoe we know very well, sort of 12% alpha acid, American hop, one of the classic high alpha acid hops, lots of soft passion fruit when you put it into a New England IPA. Ela of course is an Australian hop. This is one that I have had before, but you don't come across it too often. It was grown in Victoria in Australia back in the early 2000s. It's got between 13 and 16% alpha acid, having researched it, and it's supposed to give you some really nice kind of tropical and grapefruit notes. Apparently it can give you a little bit of an aniseed type flavour as well, so that's quite interesting. TNT though, this is something I've never had before. So Tnt Hops, apparently, this is a blend from the Bart Haas company in Germany. Usually it's got 11.5% alpha acid, and it's supposed to give you a mix of red fruit and also citrusy character as well. So yeah, this should be really quite interesting, I have to say. So yeah, I'm really quite interested to see how that turns out. But yeah, one thing I just noticed on the can up here as well, you can see beer and technology. So yeah, obviously UX Brew, this is obviously the fact that these guys come from the tech sector. I think they were actually programmers. It didn't say specifically in the article, but I think going from the fact that this beer is called UX Brew, user experience, I guess it stands for user experience brew. Probably these guys have been involved in like design. Computer object orientated programming and stuff like this. But yeah, there you can see all the kind of contour lines and stuff which is like a computer design. So I have to say that is pretty cool actually. But yeah, I think the stuff around the edge is meant to be like oats or just malt grains actually. So yeah, the artwork on this can, I have to say, is pretty nice. So yeah, 473ml can this one, 5.2% New England IPA, Simcoe, Ella and TNT. Let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very curious to see what this beer has in store for us, so let's go for it. So yeah, as I've said in previous reviews, the Brazilian beer scene is supposed to be very vibrant. I know that they like to put lots of random stuff in their beer. They like to experiment with adjuncts and things down there. Probably the closest thing we would have to that in Europe would be Coolhead Brew over in Finland. Those guys, the main owner from there is actually Brazilian, and he likes to bring the Brazilian style of brewing into Europe. So that's probably the most familiar thing that we have to Brazilian craft brewing over here in Europe actually. But they do some awesome beers. If you get the chance to try some of the Coolhead stuff from Finland, you are in for a treat there. They've got some awesome things there. But yeah, I really would love to get down. I've never been to Latin America at all. I think, no actually, well, I've been into Mexico but barely. We crossed the border when I was in the States one time, but I would love to go to Latin America and just explore a little bit, and Brazil would be an interesting place to hit up, of course, especially for the craft beer scene. But yeah, as you can see and as you would expect from a New England IPA, this one's poured a lovely, I would describe this one as being like a sort of mix of a mango and pineapple juice colour actually, probably more of a pineapple juice. It's got that very kind of pale yellowy colour to it. As you'll know if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I love to compare the New England IPAs to different fruit juices because that's really just what they remind me of. But yeah, this one's definitely a very kind of pale yellow. You could see that when we poured this beer it had about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say perfect white head on top of it. That's faded away to just be a very kind of thin foamy layer, but it has left a nice big ring around the edge of the glass there. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there. If we shine the light through this beer, it does have a decent level of haze to it. I mean, it's not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs that we're going to come across, but I mean at 5.2% it's not going to be quite honest with you. So yeah, not the soupiest and gloopiest of New England IPAs, but yeah, it certainly has a good level of haze to it for the percentage of alcohol. So yeah, remember, as you go up the alcohol scale with these beers, you'll get more oats, you'll get more wheat, therefore you should get more haze, although some beers can surprise you. And remember, the things that are going to affect the colour of your beer are 1, the type of malts that you use, and 2, the length of boil. The longer you boil it, the more caramelisation of sugars you get, and thus the darker colour the beer becomes. But yeah, looks like a very nice New England IPA, this one. Let's have a closer look at that aroma and just see how we get on with this beer. I've got a few whiffs of it already, and I can tell you it does smell pretty good. So yeah. Oh, that does smell nice actually. Yeah, some really lovely fruity characters in here, but the malt base comes across very nicely as well. So yeah, straight away with this one then, it smells like a very smooth malt base here. You can definitely get a little bit of that smooth kind of pale malty character there. There's a bit of a soft white bready note to it, but I think the oats really smooth this one out very nicely. At the back of the nose you do get a little bit of a bitey or wheaty note, but generally speaking I find the malt base of this beer really quite smooth actually. It leans, the more that you smell of it, the more it leans towards that kind of, yeah, the more it kind of leans towards that oaty side of things. But yeah, the wheat is in there giving it a little bit of bite at the back and the sides of the nose. You've got a soft, as I say, white bready character to it, and then also just a little bit of yeah, just a little bit of that kind of smooth oaty creaminess in there. The oats come across really nice in this one. Yeah, I guess the Brazilians produce a lot of their own grains and stuff like this, so even from that perspective this beer is going to be very interesting, I would think. I don't, you know, I don't know if the Brazilians produce their own hops actually. That's something that I do think will kick off at some point in the next couple of years. You know, in Argentina's got a hell of a lot of arable land actually, so maybe they'll start producing hops properly at some point over the next little while if they're not doing it already. And I guess in Brazil they've maybe got, I don't know if it would be too hot in Brazil actually to produce hops on a large scale, but yeah, it'd be cool to see some you know, original South American hop varieties, but I'm guessing that already they produce their own malt. That's so yeah, probably in a lot of these beers we're going to review over the next little while, we will be getting some really unique malty characters as well. But the malty base of this one comes across as very smooth, and it strikes me as quite an oaty leaning IPA. And remember, when it comes to the New England IPAs, I guess they can be, some of them can be a little bit farmhousey and yeasty, some of them can be very wheaty, some of them can be very oaty and creamy, and some of them can also have a bit of a more grainy rye type quality to them as well. But this one is definitely more in the oaty character kind of category, as I've said. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, I don't think we need to say much more about the malty side of beer, other than the fact that it does have a wee bit of that Werther's Original kind of brown sugary sort of thing. But this strikes me as more of an old school New England IPA, more oaty and bready leaning rather than anything. So yeah. On the hoppy side of things then, there is a good little bit of grassy, the green side of the beer for me, there's a tiny little bit of earthiness to this one, but it's like almost like a noble type earthiness to it. I do wonder if that's maybe the if that's maybe the TNT that's doing that, since that's a kind of German blend. But yeah, you've got a nice little bit of floral aromaticity off this one, quite a soft floral aromaticity, and then also a bit of a lighter kind of grassy character in there as well. I would say that overall, the green side of the beer, it leans, when you take the aroma in a bit more deeply, it does have that kind of almost noble floral aromaticity to it, but it's got a lovely grassy smoothness in there as well. So I like how that, I do like how that goes together in this beer. So yeah, yeah, lovely, nice. The green components of this beer are really, really solid actually. So yeah, quite soft and grassy, good little bit of floral aromaticity in there, and just a little bit of a lighter kind of earthy character in there too. So yeah, this is a really nice smelling beer from that perspective as well. The fruity side of the beer I think is awesome as well. So straight away with this one, you can get that lovely smooth passion fruity note from the Simcoe. You do get a little bit of a slightly stronger you do get a bit of a slightly stronger passion fruity note out of it as well. You can smell that slightly stronger citrusy element of the passion fruit, but the Simcoe I think comes out really nicely. I guess I wonder if the Ella's contributing to that slightly stronger note that the beer has as well. But yeah, I don't really get the sort of aniseed note from the Ella. I always remember the Ella was quite soft and fruity as well. So for me, this beer really has, it's a soft kind of passion fruity note. It's really the Simcoe I think that shines out in this one. You do get a little bit of the red fruit I think from the TNT as well. It's almost like a very light sort of figgy type quality. Maybe that's hiding the the aniseed elements from the TNT, if you like. Sorry, that from the Ella, maybe that. So I guess the TNT is giving it. I guess the TNT is maybe giving this beer the sort of kind of figgy, red fruity type notes actually. There is a bit of a red fruity, red curranty sort of thing going on in this one, but mainly I would say that this beer is actually very soft and passion fruity. There's maybe a wee bit of like a kind of papaya note in there as well actually. So this one, yeah, very soft and tropical with just a little bit of a figgy, red curranty type thing in there as well. I don't get the aniseed that you're supposed to get from the Ella. But I do get a little bit of the red fruity character from the TNT as well, a bit of a red curranty and sort of a very light figgy type quality. So yeah, the flavours, the aromas of this beer, actually come across very, very nicely. So take a little bit of time and just enjoy that for yourself before you get stuck into this one. It's always good to check out the aroma of the beer before you actually taste the thing. So yeah, let's have a little look at this beer then and see how we get on. This one is the Bite and Blow, a 5.2% New England IPA from UX Brew, part of the startup brewing parent company, if you like, from Itupeva in Sao Paulo in Brazil. Definitely cool, a cool beer to kick off this Brazilian mini-series with. Let's get stuck in. Sláinte, skål. Oh yeah. That is quite nice actually. First impression is very easy to drink, very, very sessionable actually, yeah. It does have a wee bit of a bite and a zip to it, this beer as well actually. It takes your mouth just a little bit of time to adjust to this one actually. But yeah, 5.2% this beer. It is very, very sessionable actually. So yeah, This one is nice. I think I'm going to sneeze. Oh, fingers crossed, no. But yeah, this is a really nice, quite zippy and quite bitey actually, almost sessionable IPA at 5.2% ABV. I guess you are in the kind of session IPA category if you like, but yeah. But yeah, I like this one for sure. It goes down very easy, we'll say that. Definitely say that about this one. So yeah, where to start with this beer then? Where to start with it? So straight away with this beer, you get that nice kind of pale malty quality just blanket in the middle of your palate. So that's there in the middle third of your palate and towards the back third of your palate. As you move towards the back third of your palate, the beer does have a little bit more of a kind of grainy bitiness to it. I would definitely say that about it for sure. Yeah, but I think the more you drink of this one, the more it does kind of smooth out. So yeah, on the back third of your palate, you do get a bit more of a kind of grainy, bitey character to the beer. You do get a little bit of a more wheaty bitiness out of it on the back of the palate as well. But yeah, on the back third of your palate, you can feel that the bready, the wheatiness just kind of thickens up a wee bit, and it smoothens out as you move further forward on the tongue for sure. But yeah, there is a good bit of bite to this beer, which I wasn't expecting from the aroma. It's a little bit more kind of it's a little bit more barley malty leaning than I thought it was going to be. I thought this one was going to be really smooth and oaty actually, but yeah, it does have a little bit more of a barley malt tint on it, I would say. So yeah, back third of your palate, as I say, a little bit of wheaty bitiness, a little bit of a little bit of a kind of just zippy sort of thing too as well, a little bit of graininess in there as well. But yeah, middle third of your palate, soft kind of white bready base to it, not too soft right enough, it does have a degree of crispness to it, but yeah, in the centre of your palate you do get a nice little bit of a smooth oatiness coming out of the beer, which is good. So yeah, as I say, in that middle third of your palate, on top of that kind of more crisp layer, there is a nice little circle of a kind of smoother oaty quality to the beer. In the very centre of your palate, you do get just a little hint of like a Werther's Original kind of butter candy type thing. That's the booziness of the beer. But yeah, I think the more kind of bitey, grainy quality that this has, this is something that you can quite often find in the more session type New England IPAs. They do tend to have just a little bit more kind of bitiness to them. I don't get to review too many New England IPAs that are in the sort of 5% category, the 5% area if you like, but they can be very interesting. So they do tend to be a little bit more bitey in the grainy side of things to kind of make up for the almost, I guess we could say, the lack of malt. But yeah, it's interesting, this one. Definitely a more kind of bitey, grainy sort of New England IPA than I was expecting based on the aroma. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Definitely more wheaty presence to it. I think the wheat is quite deceptive in this one. The wheat has, I think most of the bite is coming from the wheat, to be honest with you, and just a little bit from the grains, but definitely deceptively wheaty, this beer. In the flavour compared to what you would expect from the aroma. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, you've got a little touch of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, you do get, the earthiness does spread forward a little bit, but very quickly it becomes a more kind of floral aromatic thing, and you do get a little bit of spiciness on the side of the palate there as well. I'm not sure which of the hops is going to give you the spiciness. Maybe, I think all three of them are probably capable of giving you a good little bit of spiciness. But yeah, round the front curve of the palate, the beer's just got a little bit of a lighter kind of grassy thing to it as well, which I really quite like. So yeah, the green side of the beer for me, it is quite spicy and floral in my mind, but the grassiness sort of helps rein that in almost a little bit. It just makes the beer feel a little bit more balanced actually. But yeah, that covers the green side of the beer quite well. Quite a spicy floral aromatic thing, but then again that balances out well with the slightly more wheaty bitiness that the beer has, so it works out, it does work out. In terms of the fruity side of the beer then, so as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So this one is kind of what you'd expect. If you go towards the back of that front third of your palate, you've got a wee bit of a slightly stronger grapefruity note out of this one, and that's probably going to come, I think, from all, you know, Simcoe maybe not so much, but I think Ella's going to give you a little bit of that stronger grapefruit note in there. Maybe TNT would do the same, I'm not sure. But yeah, at the back of the palate you've got a little bit of that stronger grapefruit, but as you move further forward from that, you start to get those kind of softer, juicy, passion fruity elements from Simcoe in there, which is really nice. And then as you move further forward towards the front half of that front third of your tongue, you get a nice, more juicy, kind of figgy note out of the beer. You can feel, actually, in the flavour, you can feel a little bit of that aniseed note in there underneath, that sort of almost licoricey aniseed sort of thing, and that's really interesting, actually. That's not something you come across every day in a New England IPA for sure, but you can feel a little bit of that just sort of underpinning the fruity front third of your palate, actually. But yeah, there's a wee touch of a figgy note in there, and then on the front edge of your tongue there is a wee bit of a kind of lemony citrusy zest kind of thing going on. So this is a really quirky beer in a lot of ways, actually. I think this is a very, very interesting one. So yeah, this is a really very, very quirky beer, actually, and in my mind I think this is really quite nice in a lot of ways. But yeah, this is definitely one of the more bitey New England IPAs I've come across in quite some time, and it kind of makes sense, to be honest. As I said, with a lot of these lower alcohol IPAs, quite a lot of what they'll do is they will try to make the beer a little bit more bitey and wheaty and more kind of bitter almost, if you like, just to kind of make up for the fact that the malts aren't as kind of thick and the beer's not quite as creamy and things like that. So they try to give the beer a little bit more bite, and I think it's a nice approach. It is a little bit of a change of pace compared to what you would have normally from other sorts of beers. So this one for me is a really quirky and really quite interesting beer in a lot of ways, actually. So it gets a thumbs up from me. Flavour wise, this is a really quite nice beer, and it's quite an impressive beer. For it's the level of flavour you get out of this for a 5.2%er is pretty damn impressive, actually. So that's worth noting for sure. Yeah, I think we've covered the flavour profile of this one really well. So quite a bitey, floral aromatic and wheaty leaning New England IPA for me. I really like this one. The hops are very interesting as well. A bit of darker grapefruit, as I said, some softer passion fruit, maybe a wee bit of mango and papayas coming out a little bit later on upon reflection. But then, yeah, some figgy notes and a wee bit of that kind of aniseedy note from the Ella too. It's an interesting combination, this. The TNT, the red fruity notes from the TNT are quite interesting for sure, and the beer gets a little bit more oily on that front kind of tip of the palate for sure. But yeah, on the when it comes to the mouthfeel, then what would we say about this? Mouthfeel wise, I would describe this beer as pretty yeah, it's quite it's kind of at the bottom end of mid-bodied for me. The carbonation's quite crisp, which is kind of good, and I guess in Brazil they would need that because it's a very, very hot country from what I understand. So yeah, it's got a good little bit of crispness to the carbonation. Quite a wet mouthfeel overall, I would say. It's not the thickest and creamiest of New England IPAs that you're going to come across, but then at 5.2% it's not going to be quite frank. In terms of hoppy bitterness and things, I think this beer has a little bit more bitterness to it. I don't know if it says on the can exactly what it is, but I would suspect that this beer is probably about 50 IBUs, something like that. This one does have a good little bit of bite to it. It could even be more than that. This is my weakest area, as I've told you before, when it comes to beer reviewing. I'm not the best at estimating the IBUs, but I think this beer has to be 50 or 60 IBUs. Definitely a bit more bitterness and bite to it, both from the wheat and from the hops itself. But yeah, good little bit of smoothness to the malt base. There is a little bit of, a little slight sweetness to it as well. So yeah, that's quite an interesting one, I have to say. But yeah, in terms of the fruity side of the beer, it is really quite nicely done, I have to say. I like how this one goes together, and it does get a thumbs up from me, like I said. So yeah, this one, nice little bit of quite a bitey, sessionable New England IPA. This one, I think that sort of sums this beer up quite nicely. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. I think this has been a really interesting beer to review. So yeah, this one was the Bite and Blow, a 5.2% New England, I guess almost session New England IPA from the UX Brew brand at Start Brewery in Itupeva in Sao Paulo in Brazil. I think this is a really nice way to kick off the Brazilian mini-series that you're going to see over the next couple of weeks and months. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. Nice to return to these guys and try one of their own beers rather than another collaboration, if you like. Not that there's anything wrong with collaborations, but nice to do a dedicated review to this brewery, having known about them already. So yeah, this one was a really nice beer, and I look forward to seeing what the other Brazilian beers have in store for us over the coming while. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from UX Brew and the other brands at Startup Brewing. Do let me know some other beers and breweries from Brazil that you guys would like to see me review, and fingers crossed at some stage we can review those. But yeah, you've got another 10 Brazilian beer reviews coming up, so hopefully you guys enjoy those. But yeah, thank you again for watching. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Check out my social media, and I'll catch you guys later on. But yeah, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, and I'll catch you guys on the next review.